Hello, welcome to the Dr. Funke show, and we're going to talk about overcoming loneliness. And as I've stated, my name is Dr. Funke. I'm a clinical psychologist, nutritionist, and author, and I'm really passionate about helping people live better together. So, what should you expect from the presentation today? We're going to look at the concept of loneliness and the causes and effects, or what really causes loneliness, and the impact that social media may have on loneliness. And what do we really mean by self love and how to practice it? And our final aspect of the presentation will look at the relationship CV. You've probably heard about your job description and about doing a work CV, but I want you to think about how does your relationship CV look like, and if you was to prepare one for the future. So loneliness really is a concept that many of us feel and a few of us actually understand. Now, when you saw this presentation title, what actually came to your mind? And have there been moments where you have felt lonely? But the reality is sometimes we have to ask ourselves, what are we feeling lonely, or is it a concept of solitude? And what I would say generally, what I consider as the definition of loneliness is that there's a deep sadness, and that stems from thoughts of lack of connection with others. And some psychologists, they categorize four types of loneliness. There could be emotional loneliness, where there's a deep sense of the disconnection, and it comes from within, and there's a deep sense of sadness and unable to connect with others, and it really has an emotional expression. And then you have a situational form of loneliness. Now, you might be someone that wants to travel the world and you're so excited and you say goodbye to all your family and friends, and then you travel and then you realize that the situation you're in is making you feel lonely. You're feeling like you've lost connection with the people that you loved and connected with, and that's really termed as situational loneliness. And then you have social loneliness. It really is that in social situations you're unable to really engage with other people, and you tend to really isolate yourself. And some people they feel awkward, they don't really want to talk to people, and that's basically their social interactions are really impacted and causes them to feel lonely and feel sad. And then you have chronic loneliness. Basically, this has been going on for so many years, because really loneliness can just be in a period of your life, or it can become chronic and you kind of display that sense of not connecting with others and always feeling sad. And really you realize that they're all kind of combined with each other, because social loneliness can end up being chronic and being for a long time. So what do we think are the actual causes and effects of loneliness? And there can be so many causes, and I've just put down quite a few here. When we're looking at the causes, that could be really about losing someone so significant, whether it's a relative, a friend, or anyone that you consider significant. And this really elevates a sense of low self-esteem. So what do we mean by low self-esteem? That's basically not really having a value about what you're able to do. You feel inadequate about the things that you're able to do, and you're always looking at things in an unhelpful way. And this kind of unhelpful way can be like the feelings of worthiness, unworthiness, that you don't feel that you're worthwhile, and that really you don't feel that you're a contributor to anything. And you look at everything from very kind of black and white thinking. And then you really have very limited links to social networks. Now, I want to stress this. There might be someone who's listening to this presentation and really may only have one friend. Does that mean that person is lonely? No. If they don't have that deep sense of sadness about connecting with others, then it doesn't. That's why we have to make the definition based on who we are as a person. And then finally, it's like low quality social relationships. So really there isn't any value of a relationship. If you have one person that you have a connection with, it doesn't really mean that you're lonely. Now, what are the effects of being lonely? When we look at the things that are happening in society, there are some risk factors that really stem from that sense of loneliness. You tend to find people who are kind of lonely and isolated and lacking self-esteem, they may have a higher drug use risk, and they may engage. You don't really find someone who is engaging in who is misusing drugs and alcohol to have high self-esteem. There may be some people who abuse this, and they can give off this character that everything's going well, but behind closed doors they're actually feeling quite disconnected. There's poor memory, there's links to depression, and an increased amount of stress, and that sense of voluntary isolation that they decide that they do not want to connect with others based on the feelings that they're having, and generally poor decision making. I mean, if you're abusing drugs and alcohol or engaging in any form of addictive behaviors, then it really is a poor decision making. Now, we're in a 21st century, and social media always gets a mention, and sometimes it gets a mention in a bad light, and sometimes, social media has many positive effects, and even I'm using the social media right now to connect with you, so to have this presentation. But there are impacts that social media can have on loneliness, and sometimes when people use that heavy use of social media, it has shown in some research that there's a higher sense of increased sense of loneliness. And, we have to ask ourselves, well, what is actually causing that? When there's an exaggeration of favorable qualities and likes and so forth, which is why I probably kind of, with Instagram changing its likes to not being as visible, it'd be good to do a research on that. Has it improved people's sense of self? Has it improved people's interaction with others? I mean, we won't know because it's quite early days. But we do know that when people kind of frown upon the expression of loneliness, if someone wants to put on social media, I'm feeling lonely, would they be encouraged, or will they be looked upon? And, some people, I work in schools and organizations for a number of years, and sometimes you see what colleagues or workers feeling lonely or isolating themselves, or I see students at school. I might see a student just sitting by themselves, and I can see that student is feeling lonely. And sometimes we think as individuals, how much do we reach out to people that you can see are feeling lonely or isolated or are a little bit different from us? And how do we react to them? So this all impacts on self-esteem and really kind of exuberates feelings of inadequacy. And what does that do? That leads to further isolations. So when we look at loneliness, I mean, I'll ask you to think on this. Do you think there are gender differences? Do you feel that more females are lonely than males? Because you know that we're in a society that we do kind of put people in boxes, and we say men are more like this and women are more like that. But in my professional opinion, I don't think there is any differences. I think there's different ways of expressing it. I feel that when we look at the rate of people dying by suicide and a higher rate of men dying by suicide, where there might be a higher rate of women suicide attempts, you realize that anyone that actually dies by suicide is obviously there is something wrong. There's a disconnection from who they feel they are. They become isolated with their sense of self and what is going on in the bigger world, and they're unable to express how they're really feeling, or if they do feel they're able to express, they may feel they're not heard, or they just feel that sense of emptiness. So I am of the opinion that there really isn't any differences of feeling lonely. It's just a different way of expressing it. And some people may ask, you may be listening to this and think, well, being lonely, it could be a good thing. And this is why I said there's a difference between solitary and being lonely. When we need to spend time alone, we can really understand that ourselves. I know I've woken up this morning, I'm giving you this presentation, but I know that I'm going to spend 30 minutes of just sitting by myself and a form of concentration, relaxation. And that doesn't mean I want to be lonely, it just means I want to get in tune with myself. So, time spent alone with no distraction is what we use to analyze our own thoughts and help ourselves work through them. So the feeling of loneliness is significant that, then you need to make changes. If you go back to my first definition of that sense of sadness and connection with others, then you try and find and seek help. So how do you overcome loneliness? It's not like a snap of the finger, it's a process if you're going through the chronic loneliness. And, I would say seek out help, seek out professional help, go and speak to someone. I can't vouch for the benefits of talking. It really is good to talk. So, What about self love? I think that is something that I would ask you all now. How much self love do you have? If you was to put it on a scale of 0 to 100, where would you be? Because if you don't have self love for yourself, you really cannot have it for anyone else. You know, people go and seek relationships, and this is the second part of this presentation, is to look at the concept of loneliness in relationships. People seek relationships with really the wrong motive and the agenda, and they don't actually love themselves, and they expect the other person to love them, and that really doesn't make sense. So self-love is also about practicing some emotional first aid, and the key facts I will put here is really accept who you are. It's really, I know it's hard, but you've just got to really look in that mirror and say, this is me, and I'm trying to be the best version I can be on any given day, on every given time. And you really are going to have some rocky roads, and things are not going to make sense. But I would say do something for yourself occasionally, something special, something significant, whether you're a mother, whether you're a student, whether you're a father, whether whoever you are right now in this world, just do something special for yourself. And that could be having that 5 minutes of solitude, or just something that you consider that will just give you that lift. You know, sometimes you can wake up in the morning and you just feel like it's a bad day. But just remember, no day actually lasts forever. And consciously and mindfully, I would say challenge your negative thoughts. I mean, I like using the word unhelpful thoughts, but I've put negative thoughts here so that, you know, all the audience will understand what I'm actually talking about. And adjust how you react to failure. Maybe think about failure as failing forward rather than failing backward. Because it is really just a phase of your life when you fail something, when you haven't achieved something that you actually want. When you adjust your mindset, you actually realize that you know, all those unhelpful thoughts that bring you down, you can actually combat them. And find your own key for self-love, which is that little image that I put at the side. Okay, so let me talk about a relationship CV. Now, you think about your own CV. If I was to ask you to apply for a job, you would list down all the things that you've done, and you would give me in chronological date order and what you'd learned from that. And what I want you to do from this presentation is develop your own relationship or friendship CV, bearing in mind. And the first time you had a significant relationship or friendship, when was the day? How long did it last for? What did you learn? Now, I want you to think about, what does the past say about you? You know, do you enter relationships and accept being treated badly? This is really interesting, because sometimes when people are in relationships and they say, well, this person did this to me again and again and again, then there's obviously a pattern, and there's obviously something about you, what you're accepting, and the type of people that you're attracting. And reflect from what you've learned from the past relationships. I cannot vouch for how important this is. The thing that many relationships, in my experiences of working with, having the privilege of working with couples, is that they bring a lot of emotional baggage, and they expect the person in the relationship to unpack that baggage, and that's not what it's about. So deal with the things that you need to deal with before starting a new relationship. And loneliness in a relationship, it can happen, and it's, you know, I've given some percentages of what people feel unhappy in their family life, but the reality is, you know, often it occurs when partners have lost their emotional connection. And, you know, how do you know you've lost the emotional connection? Basically, you're not communicating. If you're not able to communicate, whether it's verbal, you have your cues in the relationship. And like as this image is showing, they may be living in the same home, but you can see the way that they're seated. There's no connection. And that happens. And relationships are not supposed to be about happiness all the time, because you wouldn't have anything to learn. It's just like being in a job is really difficult sometimes, but you get through it. The same thing with relationships. I can't vouch for how many relationships end up breaking up and going through divorce. And I do wonder if they had that counseling session, or they had that third party that can help them think through some difficult moments. Sometimes our ego really does get in the way. And I know breaking up isn't easy. And when you break up, there's leaves a massive void in your life, and this can really escalate the feelings of loneliness, especially when the wound is so fresh. But the thing is, you have to combat this, and you have to rediscover what you like, and not what you did whilst in the relationship. And I cannot vouch for anything to say that focus on the here and now, because this is so crucial. Because something about anxiety, it really is about fear of the future, and feelings of depression is really focusing on the past. But if you stay present and you kind of dissect and spit out all those thoughts that are telling you you're not good enough, or telling you that you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you realize the present moment in life is actually not a bad moment. So I know I've come to the end of this presentation, and I really do hope that you've got some tips. I try to make the presentation as quite short and succinct as I can, because I know we all don't have a great attention span and we want information as quick. But just think about some of the concepts that I have talked about. And I feel that the best way to move through a relationship is really loving your and connecting with your authentic self, understanding who you are, because then that's how you can express it to the person you're connecting with. Do what you're good at and enjoy it. Positive affirmations are a key, because when you put yourself in I am a loving person, I am kind. You may have gone in a relationship that has really broken you, but if you use positive affirmations to bring you forward, and spend time focusing on what makes you feel good. Think about the things that you feel that make you feel good, and really just go for it. Um, I feel that one way of self-love is to journal how you're feeling, and this can improve your self-esteem, improve your sense of gratitude. And something that I've been practicing for so many years is just to write 5 things that I'm grateful for. And sometimes I can be waking up feeling so heavy in my mind, and even if I have to say I'm grateful for the fingernail on my left hand, that automatically makes me switch into moments of gratitude, because those things that you have to be grateful for, we look at the big things and we think, I'm grateful for my car, but make it simplistic. I'm grateful for the eyelashes, my eyeballs, the function of my body. Even if you've only got one hand working, you've got one hand working. And be proud of who you are, and and build connections with others in any way that you can. And as I said, hope you've enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions, because I'm uploading this onto YouTube, you can make some comments below. And just feel free to ask. I think we can make this a community of asking and reflecting. And we all learn from each other. As I'm giving this presentation, I am by no means an expert, but I'm someone who is passionate and wants to share the knowledge that I have, so that we can you imagine if we all shared the knowledge that we had, how much better this world will be. So if you want to stay connected with me, I'm on LinkedIn, the Dr Funke. Dr Funke before, that's my name, and email me on contact@drfunke.co.uk, Instagram, the Dr Funke Show, Facebook, the Dr Funke Show, and Twitter @Dr Funke Show, and my website, drfunke.co.uk. And yes, let's stay connected. If you want to buy some of my books, go and visit Amazon. There's Love Your Authentic Self, which is very relatable to this presentation. There's Improving Your Thinking, which is about your thought processes, the helpful thoughts and the non-helpful thoughts, and Take Control of Your Tomorrow is really looking at your tomorrow and taking control of it and grabbing it. And I'll be sharing more podcasts and videos with you in the future. And I just want to say thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to connecting with you very, very soon.